The roots of mental health in higher education can be traced to the educational guidance movement of the 1930s. Initially, guidance was synonymous with education and therefore was embedded into the curriculum, as well as an expectation for faculty to implement. However, just a couple years later, guidance would transition to being a part of education rather than synonymous to it. Consequently, the sole purpose of educational guidance in the 30s and 40s would be supporting student transition and success in higher education, as well as employment after graduation. Guidance soon became more concerned with the vocational services for students and would only further grow after historical events such as the Great Depression, but even more crucial, World War II. As soldiers were returning from war, many took advantage of higher education through the GI Bill, therefore needing guidance to aid in their transition. Though guidance work focused primarily with vocational services, the personal and social concerns of returning soldiers had to be addressed and therefore adapted to meet their needs. The next event to further development in educational guidance work would be the Cold War and the National Defense Education Act of 1958. The NDEA of 1958 is seen as one of the most important laws in the development and height of counseling in higher education. The purpose of this legislation was for schools to track and guide the most gifted students into professions that were crucial in the space race. It provided vast funding for guidance counselors and institutions implementing guidance in their school, and by 1967 the number of counselors grew by tenfold, and institutions grew significantly as well. The increase in funding began alongside the civil rights movement and women's rights movement, which also had a lasting effect on counseling in higher education. As diversity began to increase in higher education institutions, specialized training for guidance counselors began in order to address a change in student population and student services. One of the last developments of university counseling would be the transition from using the term guidance to counseling, which occurred in the 1980s. From this point on, counseling would become the accepted terminology, and mental health in higher education would continue to grow.
The Virginia Tech shooting of 2007 is considered to be one of the deadliest shootings in U.S. history, leaving 32 lives in its wake. After officials investigated the case, it was discovered that the student who committed the shooting had sought on-campus counseling on 3 separate occasions. This sparked conversations across campuses nationwide and had administrators, faculty, and staff all asking the same question: how effectively are we handling mental health on our campuses? It is because of this that the Virginia Tech shooting is commonly looked at as a pivotal moment by many mental health professionals as the push towards the development of how mental health is addressed on campuses today. Colleges and universities began evaluating their existing policies and programs and looking for disparities where the institution could be better serving, supporting, and protecting their students. I interviewed Risa Ramshai, a counselor on the University of Central Arkansas, and asked her how the Virginia Tech shooting had affected UCA and what steps it had caused the university to take.
Virginia Tech, I don't think it influenced mental health so much as it influenced counseling centers and the Division of Student Services and how we manage or handle students now. With the creation of the Behavior Intervention Team, any incident that is suspect where a student is causing a challenge in a hall or a class can be reported to the Dean of Students. They meet, and then oftentimes these students are referred to counseling. So I guess in order to protect students, protect the university, we are so very much more aware of what students are doing, and now we have an avenue to report. That increases the load on counseling centers.
Today's institutions are taking a much more proactive approach when it comes to dealing with the mental health of their students, which is contrary to the more reactive approach that has been utilized in the past. UCA isn't the only university to implement such programs as the Behavior Intervention Team. In fact, many colleges have taken approaches similar to this in moving forward after Virginia Tech. Effective this past fall, the Massachusetts Institute of Technology now requires all incoming freshmen to complete an online program teaching them about the warning signs of depression, suicide, and other psychiatric issues before they are able to take a single class. Campus counseling centers are seeing increases in student numbers as a result of policies and programs such as the behavioral intervention teams, which commonly mandate student counseling as an intervention for the student. However, they are also seeing more students pursuing these services on their own than has ever been seen before. According to the Center for Collegiate Mental Health, over the last 6 years, the number of students seeking mental health services has grown almost 30%. The reduction in stigma of seeking mental health services has been speculated as a large contributing factor, as well as the fast-paced nature of today's society.
To social media sure does not help with anxiety. Facebook, Twitter, information at your hands instantaneously, I think that causes anxiety also. We were getting too much information without time to process any of it or time to relax.
While some may not agree on what they believe to be the cause of students seeking counseling in higher numbers, what can't be argued is the fact that they are. Counseling centers and other mental health facilities on campuses have been attempting to deal with the influx in demand, but many are struggling because their staff are not large enough to accommodate such a dramatic increase. As a result, students are making appointments that are weeks or even months away with no immediate help in the meantime. This is a dangerous situation for students who are grappling with severe time-sensitive issues and has become one of the biggest problems facing mental health services on campuses today. Moving forward, institutions will have to face this growing problem head-on if they intend to be better accommodating to the quickly increasing demand for mental health services.
Counseling centers manage the mental health needs of students. 60% of staff in counseling centers use a direct service delivery when working with students. Staff and faculty spend a lot of time working in workshops, continuing to learn and promote different ways to critically think about mental health issues. The development of college students and the normal transition students go through are learned through educational programs and workshops. Direct education is also given to undergraduate and graduate students. 71% of counseling centers have the opportunity to give professional training to students in specific major areas like psychology, counseling, and social work. Counseling centers and university professionals strive to work together in regards to concerns they notice in specific students. Majority of schools have created a multidisciplinary teams to be able to closely track and follow up with students who may be a concern and intervene with students that are directly harmed to themselves or others around them. Consultation and collaboration between the counseling centers and other campus departments are continuously being developed. Since offices are combining ideas and resources, many programs are created by bringing awareness and initiative to many different areas of service on campus, such as disability, athletics, campus ministry, university police, and student conduct. With today's college students, counseling centers use the holistic wellness model to identify several dimensions of wellness, which include physical, emotional, occupational, social, spiritual, and intellectual. According to present research, this is a distinctive generation which is very different to prior generations. Stress is the new norm. The emphasis on achievement, conformity, and the high value of friendship seems to have contributed to the most stressed out generation in American history. Millennials feel pressure. They are less accustomed to spending time alone and are highly sensitive to peer norms and opinions. They are cliquish and bonded by peer norms. If a student is different and unsuccessful in peer connections, they may feel left out, which causes a lot of emotional pain. The way technology allows students to be anonymous in the technological world makes it hard for students to identify themselves. Compared to past generations, when it comes to mental health, millennial students are not the worst. Parents of college students have a great demand for college counseling centers, dealing with parents than in the past, particularly for students with psychological health issues. Recommendation for change has been reported that as many as 18% of college students experience a diagnosable mental illness. Anxiety, depression, and suicidal thoughts are among university college students. Clinical screenings diagnosis found that 15.6% of undergraduates and 13% of graduate students in a large Midwestern university were positive for depression and anxiety. 8.4% of full-time college students have experienced a major depressive episode in the past year. Students are not only experiencing difficulties with relationships and developmental issues, but have had more severe problems such as anxiety, depression, suicidal ideation, sexual assault, and personality disorders. The number of students with depression has doubled in over a 13-year time period, and students reporting suicidal ideation has tripled.
Colleges and universities across the nation have made mental health a priority for their students on their campuses. From the origination of guidance needs of veterans taking advantage of the GI Bill to the Virginia Tech shooting in 2007, our institutions continuously develop and attempt to meet the needs of our students. Counseling centers are growing and hiring as many counselors and professionals as the institutions can afford. Our communities around the institutions are connecting with their local centers and professionals to meet the demand of our students. Student groups are founded across campuses to intervene with striking behavioral attributes that may cause harm to the student or the community. We also train our student staff and faculty on our campuses to properly support and refer to our students in need. So, where do we go from here? Institutions focus mainly on depression and suicide on our campuses, and although the support has grown, they need to take it a step further. Most students on college campuses are between 17 and 25 years of age. During this time, other mental health concerns reveal themselves. These may include depression, anxiety of all forms, and bipolar disorder. Anxiety and bipolar disorder tend to go undetected to the unknowing eye. Educating our students and identifying these concerns are the first step to get students to the proper support they need in order to continue going about their daily lives. Another main focus that institutions can develop for the next 10 to 20 years is stopping the negative stigmas of mental health. Phrases and characteristics inaccurately associated with students that have mental health needs are the main reasons students do not seek out support. Depression is characterized as just a sadness that can be cured with a leisure jog or a lazy camping trip. Anxiety is a person overreacting over small details, and bipolar disorder is a person just being too moody. These statements discourage students to seek support because of these negative associations. So what does this mean for our counseling centers? These two areas of focus include more awareness programming to our students and trainings for our faculty on campus. It means destroying the stigmas that surround us and educating ourselves on what it means to require mental health support. Although small and direct, this call to action requires a great effort from our counselors and people in and around our communities. This step forward is essential for our students to take a step forward in their lives.